Hey guys, in this video here I'm going to be talking about setting up a poster, an advertisement for a sort of a company. I'm doing a sort of a fictitious ad for a small town in Brazil that's known for well, for sort of its Italian and German culture that it has, and it has these little wine festivals and sort of Italian food and things like that. So this is the logo that I did in some previous videos here. And you can see I've used some symbols, some tropical symbols, such as the hummingbird and the orchid here. But I've embedded them together in this little design that has the symbol, or the colors of the Italian flag. You can see here, just because we're on that subject of trying to represent culture and things like that, in putting some yellow and some black. With this here, I'm trying to sort of build in that sense of the German flag as well. Although, at some point you do want to make a choice. You can't say everything in a logo, so you have to be very selective. What is the most important thing that you're going to say? Just trying to summarize some of the design here that I did. You can see I started with this idea here of this circle, and by using the Pathfinder. I was able to subtract shapes from one another, and I came up with this nice sort of curve here for the hummingbird, and I took advantage of that. And you can see it's pretty much the same shape here and here, and actually if you look at it here, this is the same thing here. So I'm repeating this this style here of the of this shape across things like the flower. And in all honesty, I could have probably put, come to think of it, the orchid has just sort of a little thing sort of sticking back at it here. We could have put something in there, but I think this is good for now, just for the purposes of the exercise. That's what this is. I aligned the text here for the name of the brand around this circle here, so it sort of flows together. One little thing that we could do here that I thought, I just saw sort of an opportunity to do this here. This piece of this petal of this flower here was coming down to the end, so I kind of just pushed it a little further so it would cover up that, it would fit nicely into that little little part of this, the shape of the letter and stuff. So when you can do some stuff like that, it could be kind of interesting here. I'm also working with some negative space here on the hummingbird. Very, very clean shapes, and you can see. I think what makes a logo readable is just to have very simple, readable elements. So you can see here I've got basically, this whole shape. It can be made up of pretty much three parts. You got the hummingbird, it's one shape. You got this flower, it's another shape. And the rest is just all sort of details here. And I put, sort of a little frame around everything here. So first of all, so I can build in the yellow, and then also just to keep it more functional, because one of the things that's that can be tricky about logos is, like I said, this is on paper it's great. Of course, if it's white paper, then yeah, you would have I can do some much simpler stuff, because I wouldn't even need like a visible circle because the paper is white. However, if we apply this logo on somewhere else, then you can't take that for granted. You don't have the white of the background. So logo has to be versatile. I think one of the some advice that I've heard is kind of, I like this example here, but if you imagine that you're going to fit your logo onto a race car and have it compete with a bunch of other logos, you don't want too much stuff in there that's really hard to be read. And so some advice that I kind of stick to, this is just sort of like rule of thumb advice, is to keep things sort of, if you can fit it in more or less sort of a square format, in proportions that look like this. I think things like that tend to be a little bit more flexible, when they're sort of contained in a space like that. The last thing, I don't want to stick to rules and stuff, but like the last thing that it just tends not to work too well is when you have something that's really long and stretched here. It becomes sort of unreadable if you have to sort of shrink it down to a smaller size. Whereas this, if I pinch it down here, more or less it retains its readability, at least in the symbols here. Now with the you're gonna have to make a choice at some point. What is it you want to read? Is it most important that the letters be read, or how do we work? We've thought long long and hard about, you know, what it is you're representing. And like I said, you know, when I was talking about this logo, it represents certain things, and I want those things to come across in the overall design. So with that said, you know, the general sort of style that I'm going for is just coming from this logo. So I'm working with the colors of green, red, and yellow, and I want them to sort of blend together here. So in this design here, you know, I'm sort of working in those colors and stuff like that. I'm also, you know, this logo here feels very Italian. However, there's a bit of sort of there's sort of a German sort of feel to or culture in this place here, and you know, this festival would not be the opportunity to display that. They do have, you know, sometimes they do have like a beer festival as well, and that's getting more into sort of the German traditions and stuff. But you know, I thought it would be interesting to sort of try to build that in, and so you know, just sort of keeping that in the back pocket here, I'm sort of thinking about like how could we get a little bit more like traditional and rustic and things like that. That's what people are going to visit this. You know, you want to think about when you're doing your design, you want to think about, you know, what the strong points that you have, what are you trying to sort of promote here. And so I think what brings people up to these festivals here is going to be that sense of tradition, and just, you know, and just having some, you know, some sort of some artisan wine and some homemade pasta and things like that, and that's kind of what they're after here. So let's get into how we make this here, and let me pause the video so I can start up Photoshop. Alright, so for this example here, I'm actually going to be working with Photoshop and Illustrator, and I really wanted to show you guys this this workflow here, or, you know, or just to suggest this sort of workflow here, because there's a lot of things that are really powerful in the Adobe Suite that you can pass you know, things back and forth between the different programs, and it does some really powerful things. So as I may have said, you know, previously, Illustrator is a vector program, which means it does some really nice you know, vectors, and which is really great for neat stuff, you know. And so by that I mean like really sort of sharp, crisp lines. So things like logos or something like that, I would definitely do in Illustrator. Whereas for things like photos or perhaps paintings and things like that, I would definitely take into to Photoshop, because it just handles some of that stuff a little better, you know. So things like the shadow, for example, maybe some touch-ups on photos. Obviously, you know, that's why they call it Photoshop. You know, you would want to take that into Photoshop, or yeah, so Photoshop here. So let me show you what I did here. So oh yeah, here's another thing here. I really want to suggest this too. You know, you can do some really powerful things combining the two. So for example here, I built my own backgrounds here in Photoshop, and to do that here, I went to pexels.com, and pexels.com. Actually, you know what? For this one here, for this wood, I actually went to textures.com, and I downloaded myself some examples here, some little textures of well, texture of just sort of worn wood, and I found something that looked really cool. And you know, it doesn't have to be textures.com. You can, if you have some a library of your own, you can bring it in. So we're gonna place that that sample that I got into Photoshop here, and I'm gonna make just a sample board out of this here. So we can go here to place embedded or place linked. Now the difference here between embedded and linked: embedded means that, you know, this new photograph that you're bringing into your document, it's going to live on your Photoshop document, right? With placing linked, that means that, you know, I have this probably, you know, organized on a folder somewhere on my computer, and that means, like, you know, as I'm mocking up a design, I could swap it out later on, and then just, you know, as I need it, I could just replace it later on. I'm going to place this embedded here, and let me bring up, let's see, where were we? This is it. Textures.com wood planks. So we go here to place, And when you place something in here, it brings it in like this. And here's the thing here, this is important, right? So this is the size of my my sample. And actually, I need this a little bigger here. So I'm going to just press enter and accept this here. And the first thing I did here with this this sample was to copy this part out. And so I'm pressing Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, and I'm just dragging this out like so. And I can press Shift to lock it along the horizontal line. And I can just keep it, you know, something like this. And I'm just going to merge these two together. At this point, you can see, you know, when I brought this in, it's got this little lock on it here. This means it's still sort of a smart object, so it means like it's connected to the photograph that you brought in and stuff. I'm going to rasterize this and merge this together by merging the layers together here. So we can go to layers, go to merge layers like so. And now this becomes one layer, right? And it's a little longer now, and I can probably keep going here because I might need this a little more here. So this is good. One thing that's not good is this cut straight down the middle here. So I think what I'm going to do with this, with a lot of patience here, you know, I'm just going to show you what I did. I'm probably not going to take the you know, much time in the video to do this. But for this one here, you can go about it in some different ways when you have these cuts here. So sometimes when it's something simple, you can probably run over it with this the healing brush, and that looks like this little band-aid here, right? If you run over this with the healing brush, it's going to give you something kind of interesting, I guess. It's not too bad, actually. Yeah, but you know, you see, the thing with the healing brush for stuff like this, it gives you a sort of a cut. So I think I would recommend using this maybe on some more abstract stuff like ground and stuff like this, like that. Whereas like with this definitely has a sort of a visible division. So I think I'm gonna do this one by hand and use the stamp brush here, the stamp tool. And of course that works here by holding down Alt or Option if you're on a Mac. And I'm gonna try to be a little careful here. And I'm going to grab from one spot and then just project it onto the other spot here. So sometimes you can do stuff like this. I've made that little cut a little longer, and I'm going to search for something else, like maybe something like around here, right? And let's grab that with the Alt or Option, right? I'm going to I'm going to click on my mouse, and then we're going to come back down here. You know what? I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, and you can do this with these little bracket keys that are by your Delete or your Backspace button. And you do that, you know, and that, the reason I picked that, let's zoom in here. You can see when I was grabbing from here, you see that still doesn't look too right here. When I was grabbing from here, it's the start of that cut going from left to right. Now, this one goes the opposite way, so maybe I can build that back in here somewhere. So let's try this. I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to press Alt and then just click here, and we can just place that here. Let's make that a little smaller. I also want to note here that I am using the soft round brush because it's got a nice fall off to it here, and you can just click that and sort of paint it in here and get sort of an okay result here. And you know, obviously, like I said before, you know, with some patience here, you're going to pull it off, but it does take some patience. You see here, it's beginning to look like how I wanted, and basically my whole thing here was just to cover up the cut. I'm kind of getting there already, you know, a little bit of patience, you're going to get there. I'm going to try to do away with everything that looks repeated, you know, so I'm not you know, so the viewer can't like figure out that it's actually two images put together. And with this technique here that I'm doing, I don't even care that much, and I'm spilling beyond this cut, because what I'm actually going to do to make my my board here, let's see, that's just two pieces here. What I'm actually going to do to make my board, let's go here, and I can I'm going to make this a little bigger. Whoops, let's press C for crop. I'm going to grow this out a little bit here like so. And let's see what we got here. Oh no, you know what, let's make that a little bigger on this side as well. There we go. Okay, so this is my board. And I'm going to build, for this one here, I'm going to build a rectangle around this. I'm going to select the layer I want, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle like so around around the board. Whoops. Right. Okay, so that's on shape. So let's go here to, yeah, let's select this tool here, the rectangle tool, or whatever you want here. You know, be it the ellipse or whatever you want here. I'm going to use the rectangle tool just to make myself a board, and I'm going to make sure it's on path. Right. I'm just going to draw myself just a board like that, and I'm making sure it's I've got my layer selected. I can right click with this vector tool, be it the this tool here, the shape tool, or perhaps the pen tool, or maybe the arrow tools. Anything that handles vectors, you can right click on this now, and you can tell it to create a vector path. And let me try that here. So we go here to, whoops, that's why. Here we are. Okay, so here with the arrow tool, I'm going to right click on this, and now we can create a vector mask. I'm sorry. We do that, and basically it hides the rest of that photograph underneath this this shape. What's cool about this here, and especially with vectors, you know, you can get these really nice shapes if you want, and so you can really go in and just define exactly what you want out of a shape. So let's say, you know, you wanted sort of a different shape, right? So I'm going to select my white arrow here, just like you would in Illustrator. Excuse me. There we are. The computer's a little slow. And you can just pull this out here, and you got yourself a different shape. And if you want to, you know, you could even use the pen tool and modify this. And, you know, for example, if you wanted a curve somewhere in there, you can just go in and modify that shape here, you know, however you want here. Anyway, you would press the pen tool and wait for it to sort of give you the option to insert a little point in there, and that would do it here. Anyway, that's kind of how I did the boards here. Just a final sort of demonstration here and on some of the effects that you're seeing here. Basically in here, I'm taking the layer styles. So let's go ahead and make a pattern here. So I'm going to go here. We're going to press this little button here that says FX, right? And what I'm looking for is two different things. You can go about this in some different ways here. You can go with a drop shadow, which is very, very effective. Right, and the drop shadow just basically gives you sort of a, well, shadow, of course. And the way it works here is you can determine like how far apart you want the shadow to be, you know, how you want it to spread out, and perhaps the size of the shadow. You know, does it stretch out more like so, or does it, you know, like that? You know, this gives you a little bit of a blur to it here. If you don't want to create a shadow like that, another technique that I like to do to create shadows is you can simply just take this layer. This is really what Photoshop is doing under the hood. You can just take this layer. I'm going to make a duplicate of it, right? And from here, I can just, well, first of all, let's rasterize this. So right now I've got a mask on it, and I want to commit this to pixels. So to do that, you can rasterize the layer by right-clicking and clicking rasterize. And whatever you had in here, whoops, let's see. Let's do this. Let's make a new layer, and I'm going to shift select this one, and then just merge those layers together by pressing Control E, or you can go here to Layer, Merge Layers, and that creates just one single layer like so. Right, and now from here, I'm just going to make this thing black somehow. My favorite way to do this here is you can just use the Hue and Saturation Window, and that gives you this. Just lower down the levels, and it just becomes just this black square. Now, there's some different ways to make this mask too. It doesn't have to be vectors. I could just paint this on if if I wanted to, rather than working with vectors. But anyway, let me just finish this trick here. So here I've got just a black version of my shape here. And what I'm going to do here to make a shadow is I can go here to Filter, I can go to Blur, and we can go to Gaussian Blur. That's kind of my favorite because it has this nice little slider here for like how much of this blur you want, you know, and I can just decide, oh, okay, I want it more or less that much. And from here, I can just throw this under my my board, right? And then from here, of course, you can decide, you know what, that's too strong a shadow. Let's just lower it down, whoops, wrong layer. Here we are. And you know, in here I'm basically making this more transparent, and you can decide like how much of this you want. Now, the advantage of the little effects panel here, the layer styles, you have some other things here that are kind of interesting. So, for example, the Bevel and Emboss, that gives you this sort of this 3D look to it here. It makes the top of this a little bit whiter, and the bottom parts here a little bit darker, depending on where your light is coming from. So for that, you have this little joystick here that you can move around, and it kind of directs your light, and it's lined up here. If you press this little checkbox here, it's kind of lined up to how the drop shadow works as well. So you can see here, if I have this global light, they're all aligned, you know, so that means wherever this is coming from here, the shadow is going to react to it. It doesn't have to be this way. You can always turn the global light off and just have your own sort of custom settings. But yeah, that is more or less how I did that's more or less how I did the shadows for or the boards in general. Now let me go back here and let me just show you here another thing that we've kind of talked about a lot in some different videos and things. You don't have to make things out of a vector mask. You could do something out of a clipping mask. So for example here, just to pretend here that I'm doing something, you know, let's say we had a shape here that we wanted to make, you know, let's say we had a shape like this that I wanted to make my own board here and make it much more rustic as wood, you know. I don't know, maybe we could even take this and just start like, whoa, that's not what I wanted, stop it. Anyway, let's stick with this here. So I got the wrong, oh no. Okay, so I need that as a separate layer, right? My apologies. So let's say we have this this layer here that I want to turn into sort of this interesting shape of wood here. I'm going to take layer 1, and it's over my actual photograph of whatever you want. I'm going to right click on it, and we can go to create a clipping mask. And now with that, it's the other way around, sorry. With the photograph over my my shape, you can create a clipping mask, and it locks to that. And then, of course, you can do all the things that I was just doing here, you know, with your shape here, and it's just going to apply that to whatever here. Here, I'm sorry, let's take the actual shape here. Now it's going to do it here. So let's go to Bevel and Emboss. You do that, and it becomes, there you go. You see, I've got this little outline to it. And then under Drop Shadow, you have this, and it's going to react to the drop shadow and so on. And you can do some sort of interesting things like that. So that's kind of how I did the boards here. And I'm just moving back to this. So you can see I basically aligned that here. Some other tricks that I did here. This is the original board that you're seeing down here. So what I actually did with this is I pressed Control or Command M to get the curves, and from here you can darken them up or lighten them up depending on what you want, just to give this a little bit of variety so that things don't look like perfect. Another thing that you're not that I'm actually doing here, I kind of did some little variations, very slight variations to move them apart, flip them around and things like that, just so I'm avoiding all the evenness here. I want it to look more rustic and natural. So I'm trying to avoid anything where you see sort of a repeated pattern, you know, and anything I can do to get a little bit of variety. So you can see here I adjusted some of the curves on both of these here. Another thing you can do is, of course, you can go back to the adjustments under image, and I've got this Hue and Saturation window, and for here, you know, just bring up this hue a little more, and it gives you more of a color. So you saw that, you know, to start out here with the wood was a little dead here, so I dialed in some more color to build that back in, you know, and that just sort of sets it apart from the other boards, makes it look a little bit more sort of random and natural here. This originally, I had this nice picture here of this woman grating cheese over this pasta here, and that was like perfectly aligned here. But I found that, you know, as I worked on my design, I wanted, you know, it's a pasta and wine festival, so I thought I would use a bottle of wine here, and I found a nice example here that gave me an opportunity. It had this nice white label here. You can always just sort of Photoshop it out here. Let me see if I can pull that up here. I can. Where is it? Wine montage. There it goes. There we go. So under the wine montage here, you can see I've got just a white label here, and we could go about this a couple different ways. One thing, I guess, while I'm at it here, let me just show you how to bring stuff into Photoshop as well. So for example here, what I could do is I could place an embedded logo just like we did before. I could place, let's say, this isn't the logo here, this is a different one here, I think. Yeah, there we go. So this is actually all my designs when I'm starting out here. I could just place that here, and if I make changes to this is linked as a smart object here. So I could always just jump in here, right? I could just jump in here and open that up in Illustrator. Whoops. And it's going to open up my design, and we get to make edits on it and stuff. And the nice thing about this is what's kind of interesting about these smart objects and things in the Adobe suite. You can always change things, and they talk to each other across the different programs here. So let me see what we got here. Is this not opening? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Alright, so I am having a little bit of a problem here. But, you know, if I wanted to pull up a different example. So for example here, if I wanted to pick up this this other example, let's go here and let's just place it. I'm placing it embedded, and I just get to, you know, put it in here. Let's just bring that down here. And if we wanted to edit this one here, I could just double click this here. You can see you've got a little sort of chain on it here. Double click that here, and it's going to open up my my file. And from here, if I want to you know, to just put a different shape or something on there, you totally can. So let's just save this out here. For example, I can save it, and if we jump in here again, there you go. It's going to just come in there, and that's the little modification that I did to my my logo. So my point is, you know, as you work across these different programs here, you know, the content carries over if you're, you know, if you think about how you're doing things. And this is a very, very powerful concept, because you can do a lot of very very powerful and complex things, you know, if you know how the things are sort of carrying over to the other program. So anyway, you know, just to show you here, that's got it back here. One thing that this is not going to let me do here that might be kind of nice here, if I were doing this, I actually chose to keep the logo as it is and not bend it here. But you know, if we're thinking about like perspective and how this logo is going to wrap around this this wine bottle, then what might be a nice idea to do would be to warp it here. And you'll see that with a logo like this, I can't, because it needs to be, you know, I can't do vector objects like that. So let's do this. I'm going to take this and just make this a smart object in itself, and this is kind of a way around this thing. And if I convert that to a smart object here, so now, you know, this is basically a layer to Photoshop, and I can treat it like any other layer now. I can press Control or Command T, and now you can just warp it. And I'm just going to try to match the curvature of this bottle here. You know, if you know anything about perspective, I'm just going to try to sort of, you know, get it to sort of wrap around that bottle a little more, like so. And I can use these little lines here to sort of suggest that curvature. You know, and now something like this, just a slight little adjustment here, it kind of looks a little bit like it's more in perspective here, but that's something you can do to adjust the perspective. Anyway, like I was saying, I chose to keep this flat, and just to sort of finish this off, let's jump into Illustrator and basically look at some of the things that I did here. So, you know what? Let's start from scratch here. So let's see. So let's start from scratch here. So let me make a new document here, and I'm going to make it a little tabloid template, 11 by 17. And the very first thing I'm going to do here, just like I did in Photoshop, I'm going to place a photograph here, and we are going to take this thing that we did in Photoshop here. This is what we were just doing here. Where is it? This is what we were just doing here. And I'm going to bring that in here. And there's some reasons why you might want to have that here. It's because, you know, in here I was able to do all these nice shadows and things like that. And anything you want to be sort of a more complex image, I actually have control of the different layers. So let's go and bring that in here. And just to show you something here, so it comes in just like it would in Photoshop. I can place it in here. Typically it's going to line up, you know, on the top right corner here, so I can, just knowing that if you make your media the size you want, it's going to line up pretty nicely. But one thing that you might want to check out here, you know, this is basically set up the way you have it in Photoshop here. Now you can set it up with different layers and things like that if you want. I'm just flattening this out here. Let's see if we can do that here. So here, let's take this poster. Let's click the import options, place, and yeah, and there we go. So that sort of brings it in here, but not with the layers here. There is a way to do that here, but we'll talk about that later here. So okay, so this is my starting point. The next thing I want to do, basically, if I wanted a separate layer, I'm making a separate thing for the wine. So you can see that's got its own little PSD here under wine montage, and this one has, it's just basically a bottle of the wine that I cut out. Let me show you how that was done as well. So basically this is this is a bigger picture here, and I just made a mask around this here by using my pen, but this is the original picture here, just this wine, I guess, against a sort of a background here with the wood and stuff. I'm really not interested in that, so I made I made a layer mask with the pen, and then just got rid of everything else here. So you can do that with a pen, or you can paint it in, or whatever you want. If you have a selection, you can do that as well. But you know, basically this, I applied some effects just like we did in the previous example here with the shadows. Basically just shadows here, and the reason for that is just so it doesn't look flat. Where are we? Here we are. So just so it doesn't look flat, I've got this shadow to sort of separate it out from the background. Now, I like the position of the hand. That's something very important here. I want to see the pasta and I want to see the hand. And so I moved the picture over so we could see it here. And I'm going to cover up this spot here because it's not important. The bottle's going to cover that up. I'm going to cover that up with this sort of this flag icon here. Not an icon, but more or less a little design. And I'm going to take this simple line that I drew here, and I'm just going to align it to the edges of the paper here. And one trick that you can do here, I want this to align, whoops, I want this line to be drawn from the top to the bottom of the picture, or either way, whatever. So I can take this here and I can just align that here to the top here. Usually with this this thing I'm using called the Smart Guides. You're going to get these pink lines, and they tend to sort of snap in sort of convenient places. If you don't see that here, go to View, turn this on, Smart Guides. It should say Control U or Command U, and that's going to do these nice lines here that sort of align to, you know, to your media here. Now, okay, I got this really nice simple line, just top to bottom here, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to press P for pen, and I'm going to pull this out by holding Option, and I'm going to just drag this out like so it makes a nice curve. Let's see what we got. There we go. So I've got this nice curve here, and I'm going to just give this sort of a, I kind of want a wavy flag sort of thing here, so I'm going to do this nice S curve like so. Let's pull that out here. We can flip this around like so. Let's give this, you know what, I don't even care what color it is right now. Right, we have to have this selected for it to change. There we go. Okay, that's why. So, you know, the point is, it's just a line right now, and I need to connect it together. So I'm going to press P for pen. I'm going to finish connecting these two shapes together. And just like that, now it's a solid shape, and I can make this the first color of the flag that we want. So in my case here, I want maybe a red color, right? Let's get rid of the outline here, and we got that. I can hold down Option or Alt and just drag this over like so. We got our next part, and let's make that white like so. And then over here, I'm going to do that again, and we can get the green. Let's bring that down here and try to get it as sort of a more sort of somber, sort of you know, darker green. It's not terribly, like, you know, loud, as you might say here, but something like this is nice because it just sort of, it's going to stand in the background here, and it's going to give me some nice contrast here for this. Now, of course, we could just take this and put it in Photoshop, give it a shadow or something maybe. Let's take this wine bottle here. I'm going to place it over my graphic. If you open up the layers here, you can see I've got this thing that I just drew. That's my group for the flag, and in that group, if you open that up, I've got the different stripes in there. You can see my bottle is under that group. I'm going to just toss this up to the top. You can do so by grabbing that layer and bringing it up like that. And in here, I'm going to position it somewhere that, you know, makes sort of sense here. And I've got this nice space that I can bring in my logo here. I'm going to go here to File, Place, and let's bring in this logo. And, you know, just like I was saying, this is reference to something that you've done before, you know. So if I wanted to change this logo at any point, I totally could just go back in there and just change it and swap it out and things, and that would work. Now, yeah, there we go. So something like that. You can do this two different ways. So I could put this in here, or I could put it in Photoshop like I did before. At this point here, I'm going to start working on the title, and I've got this. This is kind of an interesting design now. I've got some different layers of things going on. I'm going to build my title here by selecting my type tool. And the first thing I want to say is the 2021 festival, right? So let's start with 2021. Let's make that nice and big. Let's see what font we have here. And I forget what font that I was using here, but you know, you could go down the list here and find a font that you want to work with here. I honestly, I just forgot kind of what I was working with here, but you can, one thing that you can do to pick the different fonts is I like to just keep them here and just scroll down using my arrow tools to just select a font that I like. Usually, you know, I'm more or less thinking about the things that I want to find, you know, rather than, you know, just taste. So I want to do sort of a selective search here for some things I want. I'm looking for sort of traditional fonts, but also for things that stand out really nice against the background. This is really nice here because it's nice and bold, and I think it's going to it's going to stand out really nicely against that background. Let's make this nice and big here. I can make this a little smaller. One thing to think about too, you know, how far apart do you want these letters to be? So you can go to your character window here, and you can select this thing here that it should say tracking if you hover over it. Should say it, right? There we are somewhere. Tracking, there you go. And what you can do here is you can bring them closer together by going to the sort of the negative values here, like so. And the result of this is it's going to make for sort of a bolder, like a stronger title or stronger text. But on the flip side, it could be a little harder to read if you're from far away. So, depending on what you're going for, you can affect the readability in different ways. So I'm going to go with something sort of like that. I kind of want it close together, but nice and bold, because this is going to be big. This is the biggest thing to read, so it's okay. We do have a lot of the Italian theme coming through in the design and things like that. I want to start for different reasons here. I want something that stands out against the black here. So let's start throwing this to the, behind the bottle. So I'm going to press Control and the little bracket, and you can get that to sort of just go behind the bottle here. I'm realizing it's a little, the bottle's a little big. I'm going to just scale this down just a little bit so it doesn't totally take over the title. Something like that, something like this. You can kind of tell that it's 2021 that you have on the thing. It's just covering just a little bit of the title, but not all of it. This gets a little annoying. Sometimes I'm trying to select the thing underneath. So one trick that you can do is you can take this and you can lock it, or of course you can go to layers and just select it yourself. But sometimes it's kind of annoying, so I'll just go over here to Object and just lock, and lock the selection. And you press Control or Command 2, and now you can easily select the things that you want, and you're not really going to select the thing in front here. So something like that, that's kind of ideal. I'm going to duplicate this layer, so I'm going to press Option and just bring that out here. And this time I'm going to work with the yellow, but not just any yellow. I want to use the colors in my logo. So I'm going to press I for eyedropper, right? That's the shortcut here, I. Not that eyedropper has an I in it, but it's a shortcut. And I can press Control plus, zoom in here. And what's cool about this is I've got myself a nice little sort of shadows. And remember how I was talking about some of the differences between Photoshop and Illustrator? Well, Photoshop can actually give you a nice sort of a realistic blurry shadow, whereas that's not really Illustrator's thing. It doesn't do fades and blurs and things that well, but it does really nice, sharp, crisp vectors here. So, I have a very well-defined outline around this this title here. And let's group that together just to make it easy. So I'm going to press Control G or Command G if you're on a Mac, and I'm just going to position it over there, and we can just move on here. Let's duplicate that here. I like this font. And for this, I like this font for this. And the thing to think about with fonts here is you want them to, they're tools. They have a function in your design, right? And this one is just to be very readable and clear. I might have a decorative font to get something a little bit more playful and things. Here we are. Let's take this, and I'm going to ungroup this a little bit because it's kind of getting on my nerve here. There we go. Alright, so here, let's say this is the wine. Whoops. I guess you can spell wine like that way, but it's not the correct way. Alright, so wine and pasta, right? Wine and pasta festival. We can do that. Let's make these the correct color. So I'm going to grab that. Why don't we just group these here? I'm going to press Control G, just make them a little smaller here. And one thing we can probably do here with these is to stretch them out, and of course you can increase the tracking here. With this one I want them to be a little bit more visible because they're smaller, so I'm going to increase the tracking to 75. I can do that same little trick here to make the black. And yeah, and that's coming together. For the final little bit here, I have this this bit of text. Let me just grab it from the other poster here. I'm going to copy this, and let's just continue here. Where are we? Here we are. So let's continue here. I'm going to draw my own text box here. You can do this a couple different ways. You can just draw out a text box with the type tool like so, and it fills it up with a bunch of sort of nonsense, sort of gibberish text. That you can totally change just by copy and pasting this into your document like so. Now I want to show you guys something here with this type tool here. You can see it's kind of hyphenating things, and I've got this nice straight line here at the this side. This part here is kind of jagged and stuff. So what I can do here is let's go to the paragraph. Right, the paragraph panel here, that should be right under the character panel, and you can choose. You can select this little word here that says hyphenate, and that's going to make it so it doesn't break up your words, just to try to fit that into a nice, neat box. Now you can draw these boxes yourself with the type tool, or you can totally draw something with the pen tool. So if you wanted a crazy shape, let's take the pen tool, and we can do. Let's say we have this star, right? And if I wanted to just paste some text in there, I can just hover over this path, and you can see that my my cursor becomes sort of a different shape. I can just click on this, and it just fills it up with that sort of gibberish text, and we can just paste our example in there, and it does the same thing. Now with this, this has some kind of interesting features because you know, let's say you wanted to insert a picture of some sort in here. You can just by moving those little points around like so, and just totally change the shape of your text box. So it doesn't need to be a square. You know, you could have, you know, if I wanted to, I could have a whole paragraph of a whole page of text and have it sort of contour itself around the bottle just by manipulating the shape of that vector here. So that's kind of how you could fit the text into that arrangement. And then just finally, I think at this point there's some other things I want to do to this design, but at this point, just to see kind of where I'm going with this here, you can see this design is spilling outside the page. So I'm going to take all this stuff and group it together. Whoops, what did I do here? Yeah, let's take this, group that together. Oh, of course, because I know why. So remember, we locked this, so let's unlock that. Let's go to Object, Unlock All, and now let's take this, and just group that together. So this is a bottle, and I've got that over all this stuff. Let's just group all this stuff together, except for this guy. So Command or Control G, let's get rid of this, and yeah, and there we go. And now let's make a container using a rectangle. I'm just going to make a container of some sort over this. And I'm going to select the top layer, which is this white square, over the bottom square, and we're going to create a clipping mask by coming over here to clipping mask, and you can see the shortcut for it. It's Control or Command 7, and that pretty much sort of you know, just whittles it down to this. I'm a little disappointed with this now because I'm seeing I've kind of cut off a little bit of that green. I didn't want it all there, but I wanted to see a little bit of it. So we can just go back in here within the clipping mask just by double clicking this, and just moving it in. So if you don't want to select this, you could, I guess we could select both of these. There we go. And I'm just going to deselect this shape, and let's see what that gives. There we go. See? So now I can just push this forward a little bit more, and by doing that, I'm kind of manipulating a little bit of this. I might want to just sort of reposition that. There we go. Just move her hand a little bit more into the sort of visible portion, and there you go. I can see a little bit of the green now, a little bit of her hand, and we got a sort of an arrangement that's looking maybe a little bit more interesting, if you will. But I think that goes over more or less some of the techniques here that I'm going to be using for this creation of the poster. And I think I'm going to just leave it at this. Do let me know if you have questions.